Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. The brothers at the frontier will take the next half an hour or so for any questions that the brothers or sisters may have. Inshallah, there'll be short fire questions and answers so that the sitting isn't made too long. So don't expect, huge, long-winded, detailed answers, because that's not the time for this, but rather just quick clarifications upon certain issues that you have, maybe to a degree of allowance in terms of adding some detail or clarification where an important issue is mentioned. But other than that, barakallahu feekum, you may write your questions. You won't be taking any questions directly from the floor, but if you write your questions, you can send them forward, and our brother Awzan, Hafidhullah, that he will arrange them and then spread them between the brothers Abduililah and Uwais and Abu Hakeem and Abu Idrees, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Is there any book in the Dunya as authentic as the Quran in the Dunya known to us? Of course not. Quran is Kalamullah, and it is nothing except the Haqq. There is no perfection to be found in terms of its correctness and preciseness. Nothing like the Book of Allah. Not Sahih al-Bukhari, not Sahih Muslim, not the Kutub al-Sitta, not the books of Hadith, not the books of Tafsir, none of them. Why? Because the Quran is Kalamullah Ghair Makhluq. It is the speech of Allah, uncreated. Everything else other than that, it will have something of deficiency. After the Book of Allah, then the most authentic work, of course, in the most correct saying of the scholars and the muhaddithin, is Sahih al-Bukhari, then Sahih Muslim, then the rest of the books of Hadith wherein the scholars have mentioned, and they differ with regard to that which is most authentic after Sahih Muslim. Barakallahu feekum.
Question: what is your advice on how to start seeking knowledge? The affair of seeking knowledge, Ikhwan, of course it begins with one's desire to seek knowledge of the deen of Allah Azza wa Jalla and to increase upon an understanding, particularly first and foremost of those things that are wajib upon us. And that begins, of course, Ikhwan, with the ulum and the sciences related to the aqidah. One begins with the knowledge and the study of Tawheed, and begins with the small books and the small mutun. As Ahl al-Ilm have advised, that one begins with the likes of al-Usul al-Thalatha, of Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, in the affairs of aqidah and the affairs of the fundamentals, and the Qawaid al-Arba'a of Sheikh Muhammad, Kitab al-Tawheed of Sheikh Muhammad, and then moves from that to other books from the books of aqidah, the likes of al-Aqidah, al-Wasitiyya, Lum'atul I'tiqad, and those books. And then that he gradually moves on to those bigger books, larger books. But he starts with the small books in the fundamentals, and he studies them, and he tries his best to study them well. Of course, he does so, if possible, with the recordings that have come from Ahl al-Ilm, and if not, then with the recordings of the Tulab al-Ilm, and alongside attending the durus that are present within your area that are delivered by the Tulab al-Ilm. And similarly in fiqh, that he studies a small book and a small matan in fiqh. In the science of tafsir, mathalan, that he begins with the tafsir of Juz' Amma, in that which is related to the ulum al-ala, or the other sciences that service the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal, that he begins with the study of the Arabic language, particularly for us non-speakers of Arabic, that we begin in those sciences with studying the Arabic language. That is, Ikhwan, elementary. It is something that each and every one of us should concentrate upon. For indeed, it is the miftah and the key to understanding the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal. And then he studies the other sciences, and Mustalah al-Hadith, Usul al-Fiqh, and what have you, beginning with the small mutun.
This one is asking, may Allah bless you all, how do you maintain a balance between being polite and gentle towards the people of innovation, but at the same time have bara, I think it means here, bara towards them, or basically to to be free from them. I remember Sheikh Muhammad al-Banna, Allah yarhamu, he said that first and foremost, you use gentleness and rifq in general with the people. Because this is what the Messenger ﷺ, he advised, ما كان رفق في شيء إلا زانه وما ينزع رفق من شيء إلا شانه. That whenever gentleness is mixed with an action, it beautifies it. And whenever it is removed from an action, it disfigures it. Or the action is disfigured. So therefore, gentleness, advising the people to the best of your ability to be upon Tawheed and Sunnah. And Shaykh Muhammad al-Banna rahimahullah said, and if you see two traits from that person, then you leave them. First of them, he said, is al-kibr, pride and arrogance, being haughty in accepting the truth. Al-kibr. And the second one is al-i'rad, not actually accepting the truth. The person doesn't want to accept. And that stems anyway from kibr in itself. So when you see these two traits, the person has arrogance and he turns away from accepting the truth. And the Messenger ﷺ explained this, that is what kibr means. Al-kibru batrul haqq wa ghamtun nas. That kibr is to hide the truth. You know it's true and you hide it. Wa ghamtun nas, the person you know is coming with truth, but you still don't want to accept it from him. The person maybe he comes back with, and you still don't accept from him bringing the truth, clarifying the truth. If he did error openly, clarifying the truth openly. That's in a short answer. But with the people of innovation, if you don't have the knowledge, you don't go and speak with the people of innovation. Shaykh Muhammad rahimahullah said, from a distance, give them a tape or a book, maybe they'll learn, they will benefit. But if he is from the heads of the people of innovation, it's not for you. It's not for you because he may say something enter your heart and you can't, and you're not able to remove it. If someone is ignorant and you are able, you have knowledge, then alhamdulillah, you can advise him. But if someone is one from the heads, then don't partake in, especially as in still in the early stages of learning, don't partake in trying to advise, because he'll end up advising you and you'll end up following him. May Allah protect us.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. There's a question here. Can someone firm in Aqidah study Al-Azhar University? Then first and foremost, I do kind of feel shy even speaking while my elders are here, like in Allah Musta'an. Regarding this question, when can somebody say that you are firm in Aqidah? Who is giving you that tazkiyah to say that, khalas, I am now firm in Aqidah, where I can go to such places and mingle with individuals that may cast doubts into your heart? Secondly, if we analyze and look at the Salaf, who were definitely firm in Aqidah, when individuals would come to them from corrupted ideology and they would try to speak to them, they would ignore and stay away from them. And then they would quote verses and ahadith and they would put their hands by their ears. And then when it was said to them that, but he's quoting ayat and ahadith, but they will say that we are fearful that in between them quoting ayat and ahadith, they may put in a doubt into our hearts that we cannot repel thereon after. So if the likes of the Salaf that were firm in their Aqidah did not jeopardize their deen and stayed away from these type of individuals, then likewise we should follow the same footsteps. And secondly, even if we look at our scholars today, the scholars that we have today that are, mashallah, the kibar al-ulama, we don't find that they go and study in such places. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Put the question forth to one of Ahlul Ilm, but I would say stay away and protect your deen.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam, ala rasulillah, amma ba'd. A question here. A woman cannot travel outside the city except with a mahram. Does this apply to Kafir city? Will she be free to travel in the city alone? I mean, I've got the gist of this question, and
It's an important question, and it's the permissibility or impermissibility of a woman traveling without a mahram. To answer this question, there's a few things that we need to pay attention to. The first of those is what is traveling. The ulama differed as it relates to the had, the safar, what is traveling, what is considered traveling. The correct opinion, and Allah knows best, is that opinion of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, which Shaykh al-Alama Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala agreed. And that is, it goes back to the urf. It goes back to the urf. Yani, it goes back to that which is recognized as traveling amongst your people. So for example, here in East London, is going to Ilford considered traveling, Ikhwan? Is it traveling? So it's not known as traveling. So you know what is traveling based upon the urf of the people, what the people consider as traveling. That's number one. And number two, as it relates to this question, I'll go straight into it, is that it's impermissible for her to travel without a mahram. And Shaykhina Ubaid, Hafidhullah Ta'ala, he's asked this question quite a lot, and he says, except in cases of durura, yani when it's necessary and she's compelled to travel. For example, her husband is in another place and they don't have the means for him to travel and pick her up and then go back, but they only have enough money for her ticket, for example. In that regard, Sheikh Ubaid advised, if it's abroad, then the ticket should be from the closest Islamic airlines, and that the woman should lower her gaze and she shouldn't speak to strange men until she meets her husband, obviously. So here, the Sheikh said that this is when she's compelled. But in cases where she's not compelled, it's not permissible for her to travel, and she should be patient and wait for a mahram to take her where she needs to go, outside of the city. Allahu a'lam.
Question here: what do you say about those who say that the terms mumayyi' and other terms similar to that, such as saying that he is a Salafi but has errors, or he is a Salafi and he's unclear and so on? That people say that these terms are bid'ah. As for the term he is a Salafi but not clear and so on, these types of terms, I don't know them, and I do not know, Allahu a'lam, about the scholars using those terms. As for the term mumayyi', then for sure it is a term that is used. As for saying that it is a term that is bid'ah, then that is like saying that the term mu'tazila is bid'ah, and the term ash'ariyya is bid'ah, meaning that when the scholars they say that the ash'ariyya and the asha'ira, that they are upon misguidance, that this is a term that the scholars have invented for them and it is a bid'i term. Or when the scholars say that such and such a group are a group who have, for example, that they are a group of tasawwuf or sufiyya or jahmiyya or kullabiyya or lafdhiyya, that these terms that the scholars have used over centuries to label Ahlul Bid'ah, then these are terms that describe the bid'ah that those people are upon. So for example, the scholars refer to those individuals who make ta'wilat and tahrif of the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that the scholars refer to them as the followers of Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari, and they are called the Asha'ira. Those who follow the deviations of Wasil bin Ata, and likewise those who are similar to him, that they refer to them as the Mu'tazila, because they split away, and they made i'tizal, and they split away from the durus and the circles of Al-Hasan al-Basri, rahimahullah ta'ala. And those who are referred to as the Lafdhiyya, because they used to say that our recitation of the Quran, the lafdh bil Quran, that it is makhluq, that our recitation of the Quran is makhluq. The scholars use these terms to describe those individuals who carried certain characteristics, and they describe them by the characteristic that they carried. So the Lafdiyya, the Asha'ira, the Kullabiyya, the followers of Abdullah ibn Kullab, who used to deny and make ta'til and tahrif of the sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So as for the Mumayyi'a and those who fall into Tamyi', then these are terms that are used by the scholars. And it was used by the likes of Shaykh Ahmed al-Najmi and Shaykh Rabi al-Madkhali and Ubaid al-Jabiri and Abdullah al-Bukhari and Muhammad ibn Hadi and other than them from the ulama, referring to a group of people who wish to water down the manhaj al-Salafi and dilute it. And they say that the manhaj is manhaj wasi'. So they broaden the manhaj. That is the true bid'ah in reality. Those who wish to water down the manhaj of the Salaf, the manhaj of Imam Ahmad, and that which Ahmad was upon, and Barbahari was upon, and the likes of Fudayl ibn Iyad, and Sufyan al-Thawri, and al-Awza'i, and Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak. Those who wish to water down the manhaj and the stance of Ahlul Sunnah and Ahlul Hadith against Ahlul Bid'ah from the Salaf, those who wish to water down that methodology. This term refers to them. They are the ones who are watering down the methodology of Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah. Shaykh Muhammad ibn Hadi, he said that these terms you find now amongst the people, those who have a problem with the manhaj of Imam Ahmad, and those who have a problem with the manhaj of the Salaf, they have a problem with the manhaj of Ibn Taymiyyah, and the likes of Barbahari and others. He said that the only thing that you find upon their tongues, they will look at the ulama who make rudud upon Ahlul Bid'ah, and they will say that Fulan is mutashaddid, that he is harsh. These are the terms that they will use. He has shidda and he is mutashaddid. So Shaykh Muhammad says, because in their vocabulary there are only two terms. Mutashaddid, the one who is harsh, and the one who is balanced. But they won't mention the third one, the mutasahil, the one who is too easygoing. Why? Because as far as they're concerned, it is only them and the mutashaddideen. They are the balanced ones and everybody else is mutashaddid. But when you describe someone as being harsh, he said, where is the harshness? Show us the harshness and who you are talking about. Where is the harshness in the speech of Shaykh Ubaid when he refutes Ahlul Bid'ah? Where is the harshness? Harshness being here that they are overburdensome, that they are going too far in their refutations. So when did Shaykh Rabi go too far in his refutation of Sayyid Qutb or Safr al-Hawali or Salman al-Awda? When did Shaykh Rabi go overboard in his rudud that you describe him now as mutashaddid? The fact is that you individuals, that you have with you tamyi', that you have watered down the manhaj like Abu al-Hasan did and Ali al-Halabi did. When these individuals, when the Ahlul Bid'ah were refuted, that they came out in defense of Ahlul Bid'ah and they started inventing principles. Like for example, Ali al-Halabi saying that we are not compelled. When Ahlul Bid'ah, when he mentions that when Shaykh Rabi speaks against a person or Shaykh Ubaid or any of the ulama, dalil or no dalil, regardless, that no one is compelled up until there is ijma', up until there is consensus. So then the scholar said, where did you get this principle from? From where have you got this principle? Do you find this in the books of the Salaf? In the books of Jarh wa Ta'dil? In the books of the sciences of Hadith? Do you find this principle upon the tongues of the early Salaf? That we will not accept a rad and we will not accept a refutation of a person who has deviated from the Salafi manhaj up until there is ijma', and you cannot compel us. Shaykh Ubaid, Hafidhahullah Ta'ala, in his refutation of Ali al-Halabi, when he put him on the spot with regard to this issue, he said, where did you bring this qa'idah? Where did you get this from? When has it ever been the principle or anything from the principles of Ahlul Sunnah that there must be an ijma' or a consensus before you can refute someone? He said, rather what compels you is the dalil, is the adillah. So when the likes of Shaykh Rabi used this term, that they are the mumayyi'ah, that these are people of tamyi', that they water down the methodology because they want to accommodate, they want to make the manhaj wasi'. As Abu al-Hasan said, that our manhaj is a broad manhaj. It accommodates everyone. So much so that he said that the manhaj of Ahlul Sunnah, the manhaj of Ahlul Sunnah accommodates Ikhwan al-Muslimin and Jamaat al-Tabligh. This is nothing more and nothing less than that which Abdul Rahman Abdul Khaliq used to say 20 years ago. When he said all of the Jama'at, that all of them are aiding Islam upon a different front. Jamaat al-Tabligh, Ibadah. Hizb al-Tahrir, Khilafah. Ikhwan al-Muslimin, the politics and the parliaments. The Dawat al-Salafiyya, Tawheed and Sunnah. And all of them have a role to play. Same thing he used to say. And what they're doing is nullifying the clarity of Dawat al-Salafiyya. Nullifying in essence the hadith of Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The hadith of iftiraq. That this ummah will divide. Ala 70. Ala 73 firqa. That this ummah will divide. As the Prophet ﷺ said, سَتَفْتَرِكُ هَذِهِ الْأُمَّةِ عَلَى 73 firqa. This ummah will divide upon or into 73 sects. كُلُّهَا فِي النَّارِ. All of them into the hellfire except for one. What they're doing is that they're nullifying these hadith and they're saying actually when you look at the firqatul wahida or the firqatul najiyah that is saved, that this firqa actually has many firq within it. Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah. This is the da'wah of Abdul Rahman Abdul Khaliq. This is the da'wah of Abu al-Hasan al-Ma'rabi. This is the da'wah of these types of individuals who say that Ahlul Sunnah actually can accommodate many different factions. Within Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah, you can have Jamaat Ikhwan al-Muslimin, Jamaat al-Tabligh, the Qutubiyin, the Sururiyin, and all of these other Jama'at. These mumayya'a that have appeared now over the last 10, 15 years. The likes of Abu al-Hasan. And Abu Hasan has crimes against the usul of Dawat al-Salafiyya. And likewise Ali al-Halabi. What they're trying to do, and this is why they hate this term, tamyi' and mumayya'a. They say, no, don't use these terms. From those who also criticize these terms, is Ibrahim Ruhaili. He says, where you got this term from? It doesn't exist. We don't know this term. So up until the term Sururi, was there a term Sururi? The followers of Muhammad Zain al-Abidin or Muhammad Surur Zain al-Abidin. The Sururiya is a term that is 20 years old, over the last 20 years. So is that a bid'ah also? That all of the scholars they use. The Qutubiyin, the followers of Sayyid Qutb. Turathiyin. Those who are blinded by the innovations and deviations of Ihya al-Turath al-Islami. So the mumayya'a are part and parcel of that methodology that calls to the unification of the sects. That let us overlook our mistakes, like Hassan al-Banna used to say. The qaida of Ikhwan al-Muslimin. Let us unite upon that which we agree, and let us excuse each other over that which we differ. The da'wah of Abu al-Hasan is that da'wah. Unification of the sects. That's why he said what he said about the elections in Egypt, the Salafiyun, that they should unite with the sects in order to get into power. When he was asked about Osama bin Laden, he said, I can't say Osama bin Laden is not Salafi. He said, let me correct the words that he used. He said, I cannot say that Osama bin Laden is outside of Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah, as I do not know. I have not seen any proof. And I don't know if any proof was established against him. This is Abu al-Hasan al-Ma'rabi. The accommodation of the various jama'at and the firq and the sects, bringing them together. Ali al-Halabi no different. So this is what they do when you ask them about Muhammad, when you ask them about Safar al-Hawali, they say he's from Ahlul Sunnah. Ask him about Salman al-Awda, Ahlul Sunnah. Ikhwan al-Muslimin, Ahlul Sunnah. Osama bin Laden, Ahlul Sunnah. Because this is now the gathering and the unification of the firq. And who is behind it? This sect here, the mumayyi'ah. So when we say that you people are mumayyi'een, that you are the mumayyi'ah, they get offended. So therefore, my brothers and sisters, this sect is there. And if the glove fits, then they have to wear it. And it fits them. Because when you ask them about the sects, When you ask them about the various groups whom the scholars have spoken about, and I mentioned some of the contradictions that they have, the tanaqud in their da'wah. And I mentioned it yesterday, that one minute they'll say that we're waiting for an ijma'. Then when you say that the ijma' of the salaf is to make hajr from ahlul bid'ah, this is the ijma', they say no, you can take the good and leave the evil. Even when the ijma' comes, in clear-cut issues, they won't abandon ahlul bid'ah. Then they say that we are not people of taqleed, like Abu al-Hassan and Ali al-Halabi used to say, and they still say, that we don't make taqleed of anybody, we wait for the dalil. So you say, okay, here's the dalil. Here's the evidence, here's the proofs. They say, well, one isn't enough. Well, here's 25 evidences against them. What more do you want? No, now we want ijma'. No matter which angle you come from, they slip out. Why? Because they are the ones who are the people of the broad manhaj. Not the manhaj al-Salafi. Because the manhaj al-Salafi is the manhaj of the Prophet ﷺ and his Sahaba radiyallahu anhum. And what they were upon. And that which they passed on to the tabi'een and the atba'u tabi'een. This is their methodology. Anyone who leaves that methodology broadens that path in the name of sunnah, in the name of salafiyah. And they say that salafiyah accommodates all of these groups. This is where this group of people, the people of Tamir', this is where the scholars have refuted them and they continue to refute them. So they don't like the term, but the term is there and it fits them. So therefore, my brothers and sisters, yes, it does exist. Barakallahu feekum.
Ikhwan, as far as this fitna is concerned, it is something that without doubt in our time the Salafi needs to be aware of. Because many will come in the guise of Salafiyah and will refer to themselves as people of Sunnah and Salafiyah. And the whole of their da'wah, Ikhwan, revolves around this da'wah of Tamyir. And that is the mi'yar and that is the yardstick with them. Anyone that they see to be as good and balanced are those who are either mumayyi'ah or have fallen into an element of tamyir in some way, shape or form, and so they find them favorable because of the fact that they're upon this tamyir, this weakening of the manhaj salafi and the methodology of the salaf of this ummah. And fairly recently our mashaykh ikhwan, they were focusing upon this affair, lectures, writings, books, because of the fact that it is manifest, that it is widespread across the globe. And in every place, we have syndicates of individuals upon this methodology of tamyir. And that, no doubt, ikhwan, is something that each Salafi needs to be aware of. Because we oftentimes hear people saying, to be honest with you, can't see the difference between these brothers. Everyone calls to Sunnah, everyone calls to Salaf, all of them quote to Sunnah and Salafiyah, and they quote the same scholars and so on. But if one analyzes and looks into those who have been spoken against from them, you will see the reason for this speech and the reason for the kalam against them is because they are proponents of this methodology of tamyir. And so you'll find them lambasting no one but the people of Sunnah and Salafiyah. Ahlul Bid'ah, all of them, their tongues are saved from them. All of Ahlul Bid'ah, mashallah. Yani, no, not kalimat istinkar or a word of rad against them. For years. And every new mubtadi' that arises, you will never hear a rad coming from these individuals against them, clarifying their fitna, clarifying the evil of them. You won't find that. But as soon as someone stands against the people of Sunnah, they're galvanized. Chests are expanded. And all of a sudden they're active. Some of them after years, ikhwan, of being static and inactive. All of a sudden we're galvanized now. Why? Because the people of Sunnah and Salafi are being attacked. We find an opportunity. There is an opening. Let us join the push against them. Be aware, ikhwan, be astute. Don't let individuals come and rock and shake and weaken the foundations that you have. And this is one of the greatest fitna and the greatest evil that Ahlul Sunnah need to be cautious of. And that, without doubt, when we see and we look, again, at all of these groups that are being spoken against, and people are saying we're not able to discern, look at the affair of their stance with the people of innovation. Analyze that. What is their position concerning the Mubtadi'ah? Where are their rududat and where are their refutations against them? Do they clarify? Do they give the nasiha that is wajibah and necessary? Or is the only rad that they do against the people of Sunnah and Salafiyah and other people of innovation saved from them? Just make that analysis. Question, Ikhwan, what is the best method for taking notes? There are a few questions around the affair of seeking knowledge and seeking ilm, which is, of course, khair, and indicates that the shabab, Ikhwan, shabab Salafi, the shabab who are upon the da'wah of Ahlul Sunnah, that they are walking a path of khair, that they seek to have a knowledge of the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal, the statements of Ahlul Ilm, and that they seek to increase in knowledge and be aware of the methods of seeking knowledge. As Imam al-Shafi'i, rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions in some lines of poetry, أخي لن تنال العلم إلا بستة سأنبيك عن تفصيلها ببيان ذكاء وحرص واجتهاد وبلغة وصحبة أستاذ وطول زمان. He said, my brother, you will not seek ilm except by way of six, and I shall inform you of them with clarification, dhaka, intelligence, hirs, ardentness, ijtihad, that you strive, bulgha, that you have the means to do so financially, if traveling is necessary and what have you. وَصُحْبَةُ أُسْتَاذ, and accompanying a teacher, one that teaches you, وَطُولْ زَمَانِ, and a long period of time. Ilm, Ikhwan, is not something that is acquired overnight. This question he asked, what is the best method to take notes? As far as note taking is concerned, Ikhwan, then of course it is not that a person sits and writes every single word that is uttered. Unless you're from the rare examples that we used to have, Ikhwan, in the Jamia, that we had one individual in the class that would write every word that each teacher mentioned, and at the end of the year exam time, it was his notes everybody would photocopy and revise from. But usually a Hindi, naam. Rarely, though, will you find Ikhwan the Tulab al-Ilm writing every single word. If you're able to do so, if you're comfortable, Bismillah. But the origin is that one makes note of the fawaid, of the benefits that are present within the daras. If it is that one seeks hadith, then of course your writing would be a hadith. But the origin, ordinarily in our time, that which we seek knowledge of is explanation of the text, of the nusus, of the kitab and the sunnah. So one pens down fawaid and one concentrates on particular types of fawaid. And so, as Ahlul Ilm mentioned, one concentrates upon ta'rifat, number one. That is, one concentrates upon definitions. So we are sitting in the dars of a sheikh, talib ilm, taking fawaid. We concentrate on writing definitions, number one. Taqsimat, categorizations. That this thing has three categories. This thing has three conditions. That we take these taqsimat down. Thirdly, especially for Sheikh Ubaid, naam. Thirdly, the dawabit. And that is those principles that are related to a particular science. That this ilm, it has a principle, or this issue, it has a principle. And there is a difference between qawaid and dawabit. The qaida, the principle, is one that is general around various sciences, and the dabit is that principle that is specific to a particular ilm, to a particular branch of knowledge. And so, mathalan, a dabit in salah is man sahhat salatuhu li nafsihi, sahhat salatuhu li ghayri, ma'a ghayri. That whomsoever salah is sound for himself, then his salah is sound if he leads other than himself. That is a principle, but it is a dabit related to salah. It can't be used in zakah or the other abwab. So he pens down qawaid, principles, and dawabit. Likewise, taqsimat, fawariq, or the furuq. That is, the things that they are, that resemble something, but actually there is a slightly different principle in relation to that thing. So he pens down those benefits. A statement that he wishes to memorize, he pens it down. a beautiful statement of one of the Salaf related to the issue, he pens it down. And that is that the scholars of the Salaf used to refer to as taqyid al-fawaid. They would write the ahadith, and then in the hawamish, though it was disliked by some of the Salaf, but in the borders of their writing of hadith, they would pen down fawaid. That is benefits related to the understanding of the hadith. Similarly, that he concentrates upon developing abbreviations for himself. It may be that he's not able to write every word, but here there is something that he needs to take down. Mathalan, abbreviations for the collectors of hadith. And so rather than writing Bukhari, which will take him a while, that he writes Kha. Rather than writing Muslim, that he writes Mim. Rather than writing Abu Dawood, that he writes Dal. Rather than writing Tirmidhi, that he writes Ta, in brackets. Rather than writing Nasa'i, that he writes Sin. Rather than writing Ahmad, Ha, Mim. Ha, Mim, Musnad. Rather than writing Ibn Hibban, Ha, Ba. Rather than writing Ibn Majah, Qaf. ليش قاف؟ قزويني أحسنت. So one takes notes then, learns some abbreviations, and he may develop some of his own. He may develop some of his own for his own note writing, but the main thing is that he concentrates and focuses upon fawaid, benefits. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
Just on the issue of tamyi', I remember Sheikh Muhammad bin Hadi, when he refuted those who said, and it actually was mentioned in a big gathering in Masjid Bani Salima, Masjid Qiblatain, where the questioner asked, and there are those who say that this is a new terminology that the people use. And there's an individual who supposedly did research, and he said, oh, the first one to use it would say Qutb, in order to suggest that the Salafiyun, the ulama, the mashayikh of Ahl Sunnah, they're actually blind followers of Sayyid Qutb. And Sheikh Muhammad refuted it. And he said, Aslan, in this person who did this supposed research is not muwaffaq, was not actually enlightened to actually reach the truth in his research, but rather tamyi', which means to melt or to water down. Actually, the Messenger ﷺ mentioned it, or he mentioned it in a hadith in Bukhari and Muslim, where he said, لا يكيد أهل المدينة أحد إلا إماع أو ماع كما ينماع الملح في الماء. That there is not anyone who has a plot against the people of Medina, except that he melts, Allah will make him melt, just like, or dissolve, just like salt dissolves in water. So the same word is from the same root word of tamyi', which basically means to melt or to dissolve or to be weak, to weaken. And also this hadith is explained in another wording in Sahih Muslim of a similar context, and that is where the Prophet ﷺ said, وَلَا يُرِيدُ أَحَدٌ أَهْلَ الْمَدِينَةِ بِسُوءٍ إِلَّا أَذَابَهُ اللَّهُ فِي النَّارِ. There isn't anyone who wants to cause harm to the people of Medina, wants to cause evil to the people of Medina, except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes him melt. So the word adhabahu is an explanation of the other wording, yamma', to melt, to dissolve. So that, alhamdulillah, that narration there explains the other narration. So therefore, it has a root, it has a basis in the Sunnah of the Messenger ﷺ. The Messenger ﷺ used it, and he explained it in the other narration. And likewise, the scholars of Ahl Sunnah, they used it, the likes of Shaykh al-Albani rahimahullah, the likes of Shaykh Rabi' hafidhahullah, the likes of Shaykh Muqbil al-Wadi'i rahimahullah, and Shaykh al-Najmi rahimahullah, and Shaykh Salih Fawzan hafidhahullah, and Shaykh Ubaid al-Jabri hafidhahullah, and Shaykh Muhammad bin Hadi, and other than them. So when you hear these individuals trying to speak ill of Ahl al-Ilm and say that they have brought something new, then go back and do your research properly. Barakallahu feekum.
There is a question here regarding the people that innovate. Do we dislike the innovation when they innovate, or is it the actual person itself that we dislike? Alhamdulillah, just recently I heard Sheikh Abdullah Bukhari, Hafidhullah Ta'ala, answer this question. He said, what the person dislikes and what we make inkar of is the actual afkar, is the actual thought and the innovation. It's not the person himself. Like we dislike the way he looks, his eyes or his face. La. He said that is khalq Allah Azza wa Jal. That is the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But as old as the Salaf were, they used to make inkar not because how a person looked, his shape or his size, but is what he was calling to, his afkar, the corrupted ideology that he had and what he was calling to. So what we dislike is the corrupted ideology. Anything which opposes the truth is what we dislike. And we make inkar of that. And not that we actually dislike the way that the appearance of the person. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Question is, how does one be more active in da'wah, and what should one do and what means should one take? I mean, first point regarding this question is that one has to be mukhlis. One has to be sincere if they want to do any type of ibadah, because da'wah is ibadah, and for it are two conditions, and that is that the individual must be sincere, mukhlis, has to be for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, seeking Allah's face. And secondly, it must be according to the sunnah, mutaba'ah. Dawah is ibadah, like salah is ibadah, and seeking ilm is ibadah, giving zakat is ibadah. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions in one of his works the causes of division. And he says one of the causes of division is a tasaddur and a riyasa. Yani wanting to be the focal point of attention and seeking position. He said this is one of the causes of division and splitting amongst this ummah. And he said that it leads to the hellfire. So the individual who wants to embark upon giving da'wah, he has to be sincere, not seeking riyasa, not seeking position, status, to be remembered amongst the people as this person, for his name to be mentioned, and so forth. Rather, it's for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. قُلْ هَذِهِ سَبِيلِي أَدْعُو إِلَى اللَّهِ. Say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, this is my path. I call to who, ikhwan? Allah. Ala basiratin. I call to Allah. So the da'wah has to be for Allah and to Allah. It has to be for Allah and to Allah. And that's what the benefit of this verse, ikhwan. And likewise, ala basiratin. Ala basiratin. And that's the second point, that the individual has to be somebody who possesses knowledge. He has to have knowledge in that which he is calling to. قُلْ هَذِهِ سَبِيلِي أَدْعُو إِلَى اللَّهِ عَلَى بَصِيرَةٍ. Upon insight, not just knowing, but having fiqh. Having that nur, that light of the ilm, of this deen, this beautiful religion. So based upon that, his da'wah has to represent this beauty. This religion is beautiful, so his da'wah has to be beautiful, which means it has to be free from shirk, free from bid'ah, innovations, free from tahazzub, calling to the way of the Salaf. Ana wa man ittaba'ni, me and the one with me. So this individual that's giving da'wah, his ashab have to be upon clarity, ma'ahu, upon ilm, upon the knowledge of the book of Allah and the sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, according to the understanding of our Salaf. Those that are with you. You don't say, I'm giving da'wah and this person is Halabi, but he's my friend. Give da'wah with him. and this person is Turathi. Same thing really, but. But he's my friend. We give da'wah. We're calling to Tawheed. And this person is Ma'rabi. This person is Sururi. So amongst you, man, the person at Tiba'ak, they're upon deviance. This isn't da'wah ilallah. Because Allah says the ones with you, call to Allah. Calling to Allah, calling to the Quran and the Sunnah. Calling to the manhaj of the Salaf. This path that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with. And likewise, your da'wah begins with Tawheed. وَمَا أَنَا مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. Subhanallah, وَمَا أَنَا مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. Free is Allah from imperfections, and I'm not from the mushrikeen. This is the da'i. So he calls to Tawheed. He calls to La ilaha illallah, which means he has to have basira and ilm as it relates to La ilaha illallah. The pillars of La ilaha illallah, the conditions of La ilaha illallah, the things that nullify La ilaha illallah, the thamarat, the fruits that emanate from La ilaha illallah. This has to be his da'wah. He has to have ilm with these things. Giving da'wah is mas'uliyah. It's mas'uliyah. Because when you give da'wah, you're saying this is what Allah revealed. It's heavy. It's thaqeel. It's not easy. It requires you to seek ilm and know that everything that you're saying is that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala legislated. Subhana. Likewise, those that are with you, who are upon Salafiyah, you work with them. You don't compete with them. You aid them and you support them according to your capabilities. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed some of his ibad with good memory. Hifth. Istidhkar. They can remember things and they can bring evidences. Allah has given some of his ibad gifts. Don't compare yourself to that person. Know your level and stick to it. And refrain from hasad. Refrain from hasad. Refrain from being jealous. Because it will cause division. Because it will cause division. And it is da'af in your iman in qadr. The hasid has deficiency in his iman in the decree. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave that individual what he has. It's from the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you are displeased with that, which is deficiency in your iman. Which means that ifirru ilallah. Go back to Allah. Turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Revise your deen. Revise your iman. Jaddid imanikum. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. Amanu. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, all of you who believe, believe. Yani, strengthen your iman. Revise your iman. Do you understand Tawheed? Do you understand La ilaha illallah? Have you studied the books of Tawheed? Have you studied Usul al-Thalatha? Have you studied the first line of Usul al-Thalatha? Have you studied the principles taken from Usul al-Thalatha? Qad Arba. Revise all of these. And if we study Tawheed properly, and we study Tawheed according to the way of the Salaf, the way of the Anbiya, we will not have hasad. We will not have jealousy. Because you are not displeased fundamentally with that individual, it's with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the individual that wants to embark upon da'wah, he has to bear these things in mind. It's ibadah, ikhwan. It's worship. And if it's not according to the sunnah and it is not sincere, it is rejected. If it is causing corruption, it's not to Allah. It's not a call to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's not, dawah is not about, this is mine. It's got nothing to do with you. Because Allah will take you and bring somebody else. It's nothing to do with you. You need it. We need it. Because it's part of our ibadah. Not so I can say I have a place of my own. This is my place. Masjid Ibn Baz is mine. This place is mine. So I'm going to strive for it because it's mine. It's got nothing to do with you. You're in need of worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are in need of worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we're the ones who need it. It's not our house. So if you want to embark upon da'wah, we have to be sincere. It has to be for Allah, not for jah, not for getting reputation, not to knowing to be somebody who's knowledgeable so you can argue with the scholars and you can boast and you can get money. This is not our da'wah. So the fundamental thing, ya ikhwan, is al-ikhlas, al-mutaba'ah, and aiding Ahl Sunnah as much as you can, according to your ability. Allahu a'lam.
So I think the last thing that we're going to do, inshallah, is one question each. And then we're going to conclude, inshallah. So one question each. So this is my last question, inshallah. So I'll put it to you. There's two questions here that I'm stuck between. You tell me which one you want me to answer. What Saudi Arabia is doing in Syria, are they doing enough, and what are they doing, and the criticisms that the people make against the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, or Ihya Turath and who they are. Ihya Turath I think I dealt with last night. Yeah? So, the Syria, right? Khalas. As for the question is what advice can you give to the general Muslims who have been affected by negative opinions of Saudi Arabia, i.e., or for example, they say Saudi Arabia has not done enough for Syria, and so on, and these types of negative arguments against the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Then, as you know, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and I'll try and make it as brief as possible, is a land that was established actually upon Tawheed. It was established upon Tawheed approximately 2.5 centuries ago. Since that time, we are currently in the third state of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It was removed by the actions of the enemies of Tawheed and enemies of the Sunnah twice already, and then it was re-established in the 1920s under the leadership of Malik Abdul Aziz, the father of the present king of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the father of King Salman, also the father of King Abdullah before him, also the father of King Fahad before him, and so on. So the final incarnation of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has been ruled by the father or the founder of the new state of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Malik Abdul Aziz, rahimahullah, and then after that all of his sons. And now it has been ruled by King Salman, hafidhahullah ta'ala, bin Abdul Aziz. Now, as for the kingdom itself, then the kingdom rules by the Sharia law. It is an Islamic state. It is a Dawla Islamiyya. It has a court system that is based upon Islam. Its laws and its rules and its regulations are based upon Islam. Its university, it has the best and the most widespread universities that there are in any Islamic country in the world. It has masajid. Of course, it is the home of the Haramain, the Haram in Mecca and the Haram in Medina. It has the greatest of the Islamic scholars in the world today. This nation receives attacks, or is attacked from every direction. At the present moment in time, without going into history, but this present moment in time, it is threatened on two borders. From the southern border by the Houthi terrorist Rafida Shia that are being funded by Iran, the Republic of Kufr and Taghut. The Rafida Shia, which is of course the Republic of Iran that was established in the late 70s, I think 1979, under the leadership of Ayatollah Khomeini, or Ayatul Shaitan Khomeini, whom the scholars collectively, upon consensus, declared him to be an apostate, a kafir, murtad, because of the fact of his statements regarding the Quran. and regarding the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, and regarding the Imams of the Rafida Shia. So they declared him to be a kafir because he said that in fact our Imams have a greater station than the prophets of Allah. Where the prophets, they only stopped at the shores of an ocean, our Imams, he said, they have entered and swum in the oceans, or they have embarked into the oceans. He said that the Imams of the Shia, that they control every atom of the universe and they do not bring death to, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot bring death to them, and so on. And they believe that the Quran that is with the people of Sunnah, it is a Quran that is deficient, and there are verses and chapters from the Quran that are missing, and they are only with them. So they have added to the Quran and called, for example, Surah Al-Wilaya. So the Houthis of Yemen that have caused the revolution and the rebellion and the bloodshed and the killing in Yemen that has been going on for 2 or 3 years now, funded by Iran, in order to enter into the southern peninsula of the Arabian Peninsula and therefore become a threat against the land of Tawheed and this Islamic State, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, that has been ruled, walillahi alhamd, upon Islam and Sharia. Perfect? No. But you will not find perfection, barakallahu feekum. But it is a Dawla Islamiyya. It is an Islamic state. And it is ruled by Muslims. And it is upon Tawheed. And there are many examples that I can give with regard to the Sharia law in the Kingdom of Saudi, Islamic courts, and so on. And upon its other borders, upon the more northern borders, then it is being attacked by ISIS and the Khawarij. So they have been threatened on both sides. Then on top of that, they have huge amounts of refugees that are coming in from Syria because they share a border. And those refugees are being looked after by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in their millions. In fact, there is no country in the world whose people, individually the people have donated, the population itself, have donated more generously than the population of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia towards the refugees and towards those who are suffering in Syria. And Saudi Arabia also has waged war against ISIS, a jihad, by the way. We call this jihad, fi sabilillah. When Saudi Arabia declared war against ISIS and those terrorists who are the Khawarij, worse than the Khawarij of old, this Daesh, that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, with the backing of its scholars, such as Sheikh al-Fawzan and Sheikh al-Luhidan and the Lajna, and likewise the scholars of Medina, Sheikh Abdul Muhsin, Sheikh Rabi', Sheikh Ubaid, Sheikh Muhammad, that the scholars of this kingdom, that they authorize that there is a jihad against the Khawarij, ISIS, in Syria, and likewise that they also issued fatwa that there is jihad against the Houthis. So yes, this kingdom of Tawheed and this Dawla of Tawheed and Sunnah and Salafiyya that was established with a pact between Muhammad bin Saud going back to the 18th century, or before the death of Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, who died in 1206 after the Hijrah, that pact was based upon Islam and Tawheed and Sunnah. So he gave his bay'ah to Muhammad bin Saud rahimahullah, the Imam. And both of them, they spread da'wah to Salafiyya that began in a village, Dir'iyya, and then within one generation, the whole of the Arabian Peninsula, as far afield as Karbala in Iraq, where they reached and they demolished the graves where the Rafida and the Sufis used to worship. And they leveled the grave of Hussein bin Ali radiyallahu anhuma. A land that was established to demolish shirk and to establish Tawheed and to establish the Sharia. This land now is being criticized by whom? By the enemies of Sunnah, by the enemies of Salafiyya, by the enemies of the Sharia. In reality, it is not Sharia that they want, it is power and authority and the throne that they want. That's why they want to dethrone the kings. They want to dethrone the kings because they want the throne. Otherwise, why would you fight and rebel and speak against this kingdom? Why would you do it? Who was the most vociferous in supporting the Arab Spring? The kuffar in the West. In fact, to the point that when the rulers of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the rulers of the Arab lands, whether it be Egypt, whether it be Bahrain, whether it be Kuwait, in all of these lands, that they stopped and they tried to stop the Arab Spring. Why did they try and stop it? Because they knew, the rulers knew, and the scholars knew. Sheikh Abdullah Bukhari, he said, Hafidhullah Ta'ala, from the scholars of Medina, he said, before even they started marching in the streets and the word filtered out that they were going out marching, we said to them, stay in their houses. And the scholars said, stay in your houses. This is not the way to bring about rectification. And they came out marching anyway. And then the Western liberals and those who have been affected by that sickness of the West, that they went in and they said to the people and they said to the governments, let the people march. If you do not let them march, and if you do not let them rally, and if you do not let them demonstrate in Liberation Square, Tahrir Square, in Cairo, in other places, we will establish sanctions against you. So the countries themselves, they try to stem the flow of the demonstrations, because we know that behind these demonstrations are individuals who will come after they have used these individuals as just, they are just lambs to the slaughter. Just awam, juhal, the baker, the engineer, the mechanic, the street cleaner. These people are on the front line, lambs to the slaughter. Once they have fallen, now will come through the ones who want to grab the throne. And they want to grab the positions of power. And this is what happened in Syria, in Libya, in Tunisia, in other places. And you see, from the ashes of the burning cities of Syria and Iraq and of Libya, what has arisen now? A sect, barakallahu feekum, the likes of which we have not seen, possibly in hundreds of years, in terms of its extremism and its violence against Islam and the Muslimin, Daesh. These individuals, that's why Sheikh, the scholar and the mufti of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Sheikh Abdulaziz Al Sheikh, Hafidhullah Ta'ala, he said that behind Daesh is the plots of the enemies of Islam itself. They are the ones who gave them the fuel and gave them the strength to do what they are doing. How has Islam benefited? And now they want to criticize Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is at the forefront of the conduct. Saudi Arabia and its scholars, its rulers, its leaders, its ministers, and its scholars and its institutions are at the forefront of condemning terrorism, and have been. When the West was still looking on and the lands of Islam were being bombed by the terrorists, going right back to 1998 and 97, and even before that, Sheikh Abdullaziz Ibn Baz did nothing less, as far as from that writing that you can see, did nothing less than make takfir upon Osama bin Laden. When he said Osama bin Laden and Osama bin Laden and those with him, that they do not believe in Allah and they do not believe in the last day. So if anything, maybe short of takfir, but close to it, or takfir itself. 1998, the head of the Lajna, Sheikh Abdulaziz bin Baz, rahimahullah ta'ala. Now this land is being targeted from every direction by its enemies. And in reality, this land should be helped and supported. Where are the great scholars of the Ummah coming from today? From Medina, from Riyadh, from Samita, from these places. The scholars of Hadith, the scholars of Fiqh, the scholars of Sunnah, those who give you fatwa morning and evening. When the adhan is called in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, in any city, town or village, every shop and business has to close at the time of adhan. Up until the prayer is prayed, and then they can return back to their businesses. Someone said to Sheikh Al-Fawzan, Hafidhullah Ta'ala, a Q&A that I heard only the other day, about 2 days ago. They said to him, oh Sheikh, there are people who are saying that the businesses should not be closed for the adhan. He said that this has been now said. He said, Ya akhi, don't listen to the kuffar. Look, because he thinks that only a kafir would say this. He said, Ya akhi, don't listen to the kuffar. Because we Muslims, we pray. So the business have to, how can you leave your business open, the shop is running, and you're praying at the same time? What are you doing? This is a land, barakallahu feekum, only last week executed how many? 47 terrorists. Now you find these liberals and human rights people coming out. No, you're not supposed to execute them. From the West. Only we're allowed to do that by bombing them. All right? But you're not allowed to execute them. Ya ikhwan, this land, it has a program for the rehabilitation of terrorists. It has a program of de-radicalization. It has a program where they will go to the prisons. The scholars of Sunnah will go to the prisons and give da'wah to those who have been affected by the ideas of the irhabiyun, from the ideas of the terrorists, from the ideas of Sayyid Qutb. This land that has banned the teaching of the books of Sayyid Qutb and Hassan al-Banna and Ikhwan al-Muslimin. This land that has banned as an organization Ikhwan al-Muslimin from its country. Why? Because Ikhwan al-Muslimin was behind the Arab Spring and the revolutions. Ikhwan al-Muslimin. Saudi Arabia, out of its generosity and its kindness towards other Muslims. In the time when Jamal Abdel Nasser had executed Sayyid Qutb and he had imprisoned the Brotherhood and the leaders of the Brotherhood, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia said, well, these are our brothers who are in prison. Okay, Sayyid Qutb bad, yes, and all of this we accept. But now innocent people are going to prison, so they opened their doors and they accepted Ikhwan al-Muslimin into the Kingdom of Saudi. As brothers, we'll look after you, you're Muslims. And for 3 decades, they worked to cause rebellion and change the mindset of the youth of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Out of that came Salman al-Awda and Safra al-Hawali, who were students of Muhammad Qutb, who was given refuge in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Muhammad Qutb was given refuge in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia after the execution of his brother Sayyid Qutb. So these individuals, they planted themselves in this kingdom. Instead of being grateful, let's aid this nation. This is a land of Tawheed. This is a land of Sunnah. Let's not start a rebellion here. What did they do? They raised 2 generations, if not 3 generations, upon the thinking of Sayyid Qutb and Ikhwan al-Muflisin. And when did it come out? First Gulf War, not the second Gulf War, the first Gulf War. That began in around about 89 through to 91. When Saddam Hussein, this kafir, mulhid, communist, Marxist, Ba'athist, entered Kuwait, slaughtered its people, took their wealth, and exiled the rest. This Saddam. Even then, it was the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia that came to the aid of the Kuwaitis. They made a pact with the Americans because they knew that they don't have the ability to conquer and to remove the enemies from Kuwait. So Saudi Arabia, they made a pact and they allowed the American bases to be established in Saudi Arabia in case Saddam Hussein would make an attack against the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, which he did. And Sheikh Abdu'l-Aziz bin Baz at that time gave the fatwa to allow the Americans in. Because it is permitted for a Muslim to seek the aid of a non-Muslim in the defense of Islam and the Muslimin. And the fuqaha of al-Islam for centuries have spoken about this. And we've mentioned it in many lectures, the proofs and the evidences that establish this. Now you find those Khawarij and those Ikhwan and those Muflisun who make takfir upon the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and Sheikh bin Baz for allowing the Muslims to cooperate with the non-Muslims against an enemy who is going to attack Islam and the Muslimin. Saddam Hussein was a kafir. Sheikh Abdu'l-Aziz bin Baz declared him to be a kafir back in the 1970s. Because this man was a Ba'athist, Marxist. So when he entered into Kuwait, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia took measures to protect itself. And when he attacked Saudi Arabia by firing Scud missiles into the kingdom, Saudi Arabia defended its borders with the aid of the alliance. And what did Ikhwan al-Muslimun do at that time, and the Qutubiyin and the Sururiyin? The likes of Safar and Salman and Abdul Rahman Abdul Khaliq and all of these individuals. Abdul Rahman Abdul Khaliq, who? The leader and the religious head of Ihya al-Turath al-Islami. Up until today, they started speaking against the scholars, against the fatwa of Sheikh Abdul-Aziz bin Baz, making sly and snide attacks against the rulers. So they supported Saddam Hussein, the Ba'athist communist, over this land of Tawheed. And yet they say that we are people of Sunnah. Yeah, and then you have Muhammad Surur with his Majallatul Sunnah that he published from Birmingham. You look at Maktaba Salafiyya, the bookstore, across the road is a street called Langley Street. On Langley Street there is a building. That building there is where Muhammad Surur's printing press was. He was established there. He used to publish his magazine there. Thereafter they established a masjid in London, Muntada al-Islami. The organization that was established by Muhammad Surur Zain al-Abidin. This Syrian who left Syria, went to Saudi Arabia. In Saudi Arabia, he taught and was sitting with the likes of Safra Hawali, Salman al-Auda. Eventually, he moved to Kuwait. From Kuwait, he was exiled into London. From London, he moved to Birmingham. And he used to sit in Green Lane Masjid, giving circles in the early 90s and handing out his magazine, Mujallatul Sunnah, that Shaykh al-Albani used to call Mujallatul Bid'ah. Not a magazine of Sunnah, a magazine of Bid'ah. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia banned this magazine. So what did he used to do? He used to get a fax machine, several fax machines. You know, this is pre-email days. Several fax machines, and get their workers in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia who had Ikhwan, the thinking of Ikhwan, that had infiltrated the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And literally thousands of faxes used to enter into the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia with the fatwa and the rulings of this Muhammad Surur and those who were with him from the takfiris. And then they would read those from the manabir, from the mimbars in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. From his writings, they used to speak against Sheikh Abdullaziz bin Baz, that the scholars of Saudi Arabia are the slaves of the slaves of the slaves, and their leaders and their masters are the Jews and the Christians. Talking about Sheikh Abdullaziz bin Baz. So for years, for decades, these people have been trying to destroy this kingdom. Nothing has changed now. So we make dua for them day and night that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protects it and preserves this kingdom. People say to me, Ya akhi, don't you want an Islamic state? ISIS, look, it's Islam. Don't you want Islam? I say, we have an Islamic state, barakallahu feekum. Not one, we have many. Kuwait is an Islamic state. Saudi Arabia is an Islamic state, and the best of them is the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Without doubt. So we have an Islamic state. The Khariji encampment that they have, that's all it is. It is an encampment in Syria that inshallah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will wipe from the earth. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expedite that. These individuals, this Daesh and this organization, in their tweets and in their writings and in their fatwa, you know what they say? We will enter into Riyadh and we will hang your scholars from the lampposts of Riyadh. Their enmity is towards Sunnah and Salafiyah. And we will behead your king. This is what they want. So they can establish the Khariji state wherever they can. And Alhamdulillah, Wahab ibn Munabbih, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, never has a Khariji or the Khawarij ever established a dawla. Never. With all of their fighting and killing and bloodshed and murder, their killing of women and children and families, young and old, they have never established a dawla. All they can do is cut off the road here, cut off the pathways there. Never have they been established. So when we say, what does Saudi Arabia do? Look at the pressure that this dawla is under, but it stands steadfast and firm. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed them, walillahi alhamd, blessed them with scholars, with the birth and the upbringing of Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, rahimahullah ta'ala, and his offspring, and his students, and his grandchildren. From his family and from his offspring and from those who benefited from him. And likewise, hand in hand with that, with the rulers, the family of Saud, the house of Saud. The house of Saud, alongside this family of Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, for 2.5 centuries, walillahi alhamd, or 2 centuries or thereabouts, established the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the dawla that they want to destroy. Yes, it is a land that has Sharia. It is also a land that has weaknesses. Just like you and I have weaknesses, barakallahu feekum. Put your hands up if you think that you're perfect. those murderous shayateen that are operating in Syria, in their little enclaves, they will soon come to an end, inshallah. May Allah give victory to the mujahideen of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, both in Yemen and in Syria. Allah bless this country, bless them with wealth. They were just Bedouins walking from one village to a next, just on camelback. And then something came out of the ground that Allah has never given to any land before this land of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. A power, black liquid that came out of the ground that has more deposits of oil and crude oil and that quality of crude oil more than any country in the world. Allah bless them with this. Yet they still held on to the Sunnah and Tawheed. Who could do that? I put 20,000 pounds in the lap of someone and ya akhi, gone, finished, no salah, nothing, never see him again.
Beard gone.
Look what Allah gave them, and still what did they do with the wealth? Look what they did. They took the Quran, had it translated into how many languages? Maybe the brothers Abduililah Uwais know better. How many languages they translated it into? You name the language, they translated it. Every language, Somali, Albanian, Bosnian, Serbo-Croat, Russian, Hindi, Urdu, Bengali, you name the language, they translated it. Free of charge. Since when? Since Barakallahu Feekum from the 1970s. Kitab al-Tawheed used to be distributed in Britain and in America, in the English language and in other languages in the Saudi embassies across the world. Kitab al-Tawheed of Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab back in the 1970s. This is what they used to do, and they still do. Millions of mushafs translated into hundreds of languages, distributed to millions of people, funded masajid, literally hundreds and thousands of mosques around the world funded by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Mosques in Pakistan, mosques in Bangladesh, mosques in Russia, mosques in the Russian republics, mosques across Europe, mosques in Birmingham, mosques in London, in Edinburgh, in Scotland, everywhere around the world, in America. From the wealth of this government. That's why I said, put 20,000 pounds in your lap when we'll see you again. These people, they had wealth and they spent it in the cause of Allah. Of course. Is there weakness? Find me a person who doesn't have weakness. Sheikh al-Fawzan was asked, remember Sheikh al-Fawzan, same Q&A I was listening to a few days ago. They said to him, Ya Sheikh, what about making dua for the ruler? He said that it is a sunnah of Yawm al-Jum'ah. He said, I don't say it is mubah. I don't say it is something that was done. He said, I say it is a sunnah to make dua for the Muslim rulers. Someone said, then the next question that came, they said to him, oh Sheikh, what about mentioning their name? He said, mentioning the name, then that is up to you. But making dua is a sunnah. And making dua against them is a bid'ah. Because this was the way of the Salaf, making dua against them bid'ah, making dua for them sunnah. Barakallahu fi. So that's my answer to that question. Barakallahu feekum. So there's one more answer from the brothers and then we'll pray inshallah. Jazakumullahu khair.
Question, no. How do you clarify that people such as Sulaiman al-Alwan are upon batil? Ikhwan, Sulaiman al-Alwan, before we even go into Sulaiman al-Alwan, generally we say, and our principle and our position, Ikhwan, is that Ahlul Sunnah, when they speak against any individual, their speech is based on mabniyun, upon barahin and upon hujaj. And that is what our mashayikh throughout the passage of time, Ahlul Hadith throughout time have called to. And that their jarh and their statements against anyone is based, ikhwan, upon hujaj and barahin. And those who enter into speaking against this manhaj, particularly the manhaj of Rad. Their speech, Ikhwan, has no basis whatsoever other than brothers, mutashaddideen, brothers need to calm down, brothers need to be more merciful, and so on and so forth. No hujjah, no proof, no evidence, no basis. Emotion, and abandoning, Ikhwan, this methodology of Ahlul Haqq and of Ahlul Hadith. The manhaj of Ahlul Hadith is mabniyun and based upon speaking against individuals with barahin, with proof. If we're looking at the affair of the jarh and the ta'deel of the scholars of hadith of the past, and it was based upon barahin. If we're looking at their refutations and their radd against Ahlul Bid'ah, it was based upon barahin, proof and evidence. When Imam Ahmad spoke against Hussein al-Karabisi, he said, أخزى الله الكرابيسي. May Allah humiliate Karabisi. لا يجالس. That he is not to be sat with, and don't sit with the one that sits with him. هذا لا يعرفه إلا من خبره. He said this individual is one that no one knows other than the one that خبره. يعني the one that is acquainted with him, the one that has knowledge of him, the one that knows him well. And so others may speak well of him. Others may not see the problem or the issue. The issue, brothers and sisters, is not in the hands of those who consider him someone upright and someone who is upon khair, but the issue lies with those who speak against him with barahin. And that is the statement, Ikhwan, of our ulama. When they speak, Ikhwan, they don't speak upon desires or because they don't like the look of the guy. Their speech is based upon hujjah. Whether it be Sulaiman Ulwan, Safar Hawali, Salman Uda, A'id Qarni, regardless of who it is, their speech is based upon what they said, when they said it, where they said it, how they said it, the context in which it was said, and the fact that these statements oppose the manhaj of Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah, and this is the explanation. And Sulaiman Ulwan is from them. I remember in the early 90s meeting Sulaiman Ulwan in Qasim, and he was delivering a lecture, and I spoke to him after the lecture. That was before rather the tafasil concerning him and the detail of Ahlul Ilm concerning him was widespread. And I remember hearing falsehood from him back then as a young student. I remember hearing batil from him. Sulaiman Ulwan is from the figureheads of khuruj, of the khawarij of our time, of takfir and jihad. From those who call, ayyuha al-ikhwa, to the revolt against the rulers, particularly the rulers of Saudi Arabia. From those who encourage the amaliyat al-intihariya, encourage suicide missions. From those who encourage the likes of, and at that time, his call and promotion of Osama bin Laden, his praise of Osama bin Laden, and raising him as one that the Ummah should turn to and should herald and celebrate his presence. His speech against the ulama particularly of the Mamlaka al-Arabiya Saudiya, and in particular the Kibar, Sheikh Abdulaziz Ibn Baz, Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen, and him referring to them as ulama al-Salatin, the ulama or the scholars of the Salatin, scholars of the rulers. So his manhaj, his maslak, was a manhaj and a maslak, ikhwan, of the same Muhammad Surur Zain Abidin, the same Safar and Salman, but worse than them as it relates to the affairs of takfir and jihad and calling to that and promoting that. He was imprisoned by the Mamlaka, by the government of Saudi Arabia, and even when he was imprisoned, he refused to take back his stances and the statements that he made, refused to make tawbah and take back the positions that he held, even while in prison. He mentioned that I will die in prison, I will die upon that which I believe. And so he, with the ulama of the Mamlaka, with the tulab al-ilm of the Mamlaka, is well known as a Khariji, Jihadi, Takfiri, and that is the legacy of Sulaiman Ulwan. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam.
Alhamdulillah, salatu wasalam rasulillah. Maybe just question that was asked earlier about studying in Azhar. I just remember a small, short qissa, which maybe we can mention it. And that is when Shaykh Albani rahimahullah, when he was in Hajj time, in a tent, one of the Azhari scholars, actually, so-called scholars, came in to the tent, and it is known that the Azharis, basically they are Asha'irah. They do not affirm that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above the arsh in a way which befits His majesty. So he came into the tent to argue with the Shaykh or to debate with the Shaykh. Shaykh Albani rahimahullah just asked him simple questions. What is above this first heaven? He said the second heaven. What is above the second heaven? He said the third heaven. What is above the third heaven? The fourth heaven. What is above the fifth? The sixth. What is above the seventh? He said the arsh. Alhamdulillah. So far is correct. Huh? The arsh of Ar-Rahman. Above the seventh heaven, Jannat al-Firdaus. The saqf, the roof is the arsh of Ar-Rahman. What is above the arsh of Ar-Rahman? Shaykh Albani rahimahullah asked him. Now Shaykh Albani said, I thought I finished from the creation. And the man said, Kurubiyun. He said, what's Kurubiyun? Kurubiyun, angels flying above the arsh. So Shaykh Albani rahimahullah said, why don't you just say what Allah said in the Quran? Ar-Rahmanu al-arshi istawa. Ar-Rahman is above the arsh in a way which... He said, where'd you get this from? Kurubiyun. Above the seven heavens, above the arsh is Kurubiyun. He said, that's what they teach us in Azhar. He said, it's not bad. Why don't you just say what Allah said in the Quran? Ar-Rahman al-arshi istawa. And he ended the conversation like that we go back to the Quran, Sunnah ala Fahm al-Salaf. And alhamdulillah, he completed that discussion. So studying in Azhar is not advisable, because that's what they teach, the teaching of the Ash'ari creed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, many verses, many ahadith, Allah is above, is sufficient for us as well. After that, to take from the scholars like Imam Malik rahimahullah, who said al-istiwa'u ma'lum wa kayfa majhul wal imanu bihi wajib wa su'alu anhu bid'ah. The istiwa is known, and believing in it is wajib, is an obligation. Question is an innovation. Question is innovation. So istiwa means, as Mujahid said, and as Abu Aliya said, from the Tabi'een, irtafa'a wa ala. That's in Bukhari. That Allah rose and is above. And who should get that right with the translation? Muhsin Khan with Taqiyuddin al-Hilali rahimahullah. In their translation of the Noble Quran, they got that translation correct. And all the other translations, unfortunately, are deficient, and they messed up with regards to that translation. So alhamdulillah, this one story I just thought add to it, just to end in a nice note.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wal aqibati lil muttaqeen, was salatu was salam ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursaleen, Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een, wa ba'd. Alhamdulillah, what our brothers have said is sufficient, but I would just like to add a small point regarding the confusion that we have today, regarding whatever is being said regarding Tamyi' and those who resemble the people of Salafiyah. Then Ikhwan, the deen is simple. The foundations have been laid down from our Salaf, and it's for us to learn it and to be steadfast upon it and not to compromise it. It's as simple as that. We've had so many questions today. It revolves around this matter. But I'll bring you the statement of Hasan al-Basri rahimahullah ta'ala, when he said, "As-sunnah la ilaha illahu bayn al-ghali wa jafi." That the sunnah is between extremism and likewise falling short. The sunnah is in between this. فَصَبَرُوا عَلَيْهَا يَرْحَمُكُمُ اللَّهُ. So be patient and cling to the sunnah. May Allah have mercy upon you. And then he went on to mention, أَهْلُ السُّنَّةِ أَقَلَّ النَّاسِ فِيمَا مَضَى. That the people of the sunnah, they were few. Those who were before us, the people that actually were upon the sunnah, they were few. وَأَقَلَّ النَّاسِ فِيمَا بَقِي. And they will be also few in number which the time that we have that remains. And then look at the sifah, look at the attribute, what he went on to mention regarding them. الَّذِينَ لَمْ يَذْحَبُونَ مَا الْأَهْلَ الْإِعْتِرَافِ إِحْتِرَافِهِمْ. That they do not accompany and go with the people that are excessive, that exceed the limits of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whether it is extremism like the Khawarij, or whether it is like the time that we have today, Tamir, compromising their deen. The foundations are simple. As Ibn Mas'ud mentions, that we follow and we do not innovate. Wallah, it is simple. Learn the madhab of the Salaf. And then ask Allah Azza wa Jal to keep you firm upon it. Because it's not just enough to learn. As Sheikh Muhammad bin Hadi, he mentioned that the ibra laysat faqat ma'al ilm. It's not that you just have ilm faqat, but rather you make tatbiq and you have tathabbut upon the ilm. That your actions are in accordance to your knowledge. Just as how Imam Ahmad was, rahimullah ta'ala. Imam Ahmad, Sheikh Muhammad bin Hadi mentioned a beautiful fa'idah. He has been referred to, you hear a lot in the books of the Sunnah. Huwa ala aqidat al-Ahmad. He is upon the aqidah of Ahmad. He received that title, why? Was Ahmad on a different aqidah than those before him? The Sahaba, the Tabi'een, wa atba' Tabi'een. Was he on a different aqidah that the people are now saying, Huwa ala aqidat al-Ahmad? La. Sheikh Muhammad bin Hadi said, why? Shiddatu masakihi ala al-haq. Because he was extremely firm upon the aqidah, upon the manhaj. The fitna of the Quran, khalqul Quran. He did not budge. There were ulama at his time that were known for ilm and sunnah. But Imam Ahmad was known not to compromise his manhaj, not to compromise his methodology. And due to that, look what it was labeled. Huwa ala aqidat al-Ahmad. He's upon the aqidah of Ahmad. Bearing in mind, Imam Ahmad only followed the aqidah that came before him. He didn't have a different aqidah. But he was a man that was known not to compromise his deen, not to compromise and water down the religion. He remained firm. So this is why Hassan al-Basri then goes on to mention that Ahl al-Sunnah lam yadhabu mal Ahl al-Bidah fi bidatihim. And they do not accompany the people of innovation when they innovate. وَلَكِنْ صَبَرُوا عَلَى سُنَّتِهِمْ. But they remained firm upon their sunnah up until they meet Allah Azza wa Jal. And then look what he said at the end. فَكَذَلِكَ كُونُوا بَارَكَ اللَّهُ فِيكُمْ. Likewise you cling on to that sunnah and hold on to that sunnah. Wallahi, this deen requires men. As our Sheikh Rabi Hafidhullah Ta'ala said, when there was a time when we're being attacked, Maktab al-Salafiyya, there was being attacked by mujrimeen. Yes, I say mujrimeen, Medina.com, who were going around spreading false lies against us, making the mashayikh believe things that was incorrect. And it was times that were hard, when the mashayikh were even analyzing and listening, giving an ear. To show you that even the greatest of the scholars is only Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that does not make any mistakes. Everyone is a bashar. But when the time was hard and we were being attacked from all corners, where you would walk in the faculty of hadith, kulliyah, and people would look at you as if for those you were mujrimeen, mubtadi'een, people boycotting you, not giving you salams, times was hard. And what did our Shaykh advise us with? He said, هذه دعوة تحتاج الرجال. This da'wah, it requires men, real men. It's not for the weak. If you are weak, then remain quiet and follow and don't speak. If you can't aid, then be quiet. But if you're going to put yourself out in da'wah and speak, then be a man. Be a man and be firm and cling on and don't compromise your deen. So this is what I want you to advise, ikhwan. Be firm and cling on to that which has been given to you. Learn the madhab of Salaf, the methodology of the Salaf, then ask Allah to keep you firm upon it and remain that way until you meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best.
And if the Ikhwan, just one point to add to that, Ikhwan, before we seal up. That mi'yar, and this yardstick that the brother is saying, Ikhwan, I'm mentioning, the yardstick of Salafiyah. Everyone is claiming, everybody makes claims now, but let the yardstick, let your mi'yar be the kutub of the Salaf. Let your yardstick be the books of the Salaf, not the statement of Fulan and Allan. The kutub of the Salaf, Ikhwan, and that which was understood from them by the ulama of Ahl Sunnah. Those statements that you hear coming from here and there, analyze them in accordance with the Salaf of this Ummah. What were the Salaf upon in relation to this? These claims of shiddah and being shadid and harsh, how were the Salaf in relation to this issue? Were they likewise shadid? Or were they weak? Or were they soft as you intend us to be? How were they in relation to these claims? Or they call it to return back to three men. Mathalan, as we see in the fitna of Imam Ahmad, al-a'yun, all of the eyes of Ahlul Sunnah were upon Ahmad alone. Imam Abdullah ibn Mubarak, he mentioned when he was asked concerning the Jama'ah, he said, Abu Hamza Sukkari, Rajul Wahid, alhamdulillah, we have three. During the era that just preceded this one, the affairs returned back to who, Ikhwan? ثلاثة. Abdulaziz Ibn Baz, Sheikh Al-Albani, Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen. Three, ثلاثة. And nobody said, yeah, he returned the affairs back to three. No, three. Are there other ulama? There are other ulama. And that is not our statement, incidentally. We don't say there are only three. But if it were that we were making that statement, would it be an issue? If we were to look then at the fi'l of the Salaf and that which the Salaf of this Ummah were upon, the people of Mosul, mathalan, were tested by Mu'afa bin Imran. And it was a test for them. One man. And they were ulama, a'imma in the region. Let the mi'yar, let your yardstick be the kutub of the Salaf. Not the statement of Fulan, not the statement of Allan, not the statement of Thintan. The statements of the Salaf of this Ummah, ayyuha al-ikhwa. Let that be the yardstick. Why? Because we're Salafi. That is what the name and what the title necessitates. Salafi. That we're upon that which the Salaf were upon. And so if a person brings to you a qa'idah and a principle that opposes what they were upon, the question is with the qa'idah, is not with what the Salaf of this Ummah were upon. Where did this new principle come from? Where did this new approach come from? Where did this new understanding come from? That is what we should be questioning. Don't question the one that remained upon the manhaj of the Salaf of this Ummah, thabiteen, unshaken, firm, constant upon it. Don't question that one. The question should be for this new understanding, this new approach, because it goes against that which is established and thabit from the positions and the mawaqif of the Salaf of this Ummah. That is why we're Salafi, Ikhwan. Don't allow then the fickle, don't allow those who are shallow to inspire you with this fickle, shallow, feeble mentality and understanding of this Sunnah. The Sunnah, brothers and sisters, Alhamdulillah, is واضح. تركتكم على مثل البيضاء ليلها كنهارها لا يزيغ عنها إلا هالك. صلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We thank the brothers and the sisters for attending. And no doubt, Ikhwan, this is a mabda and a beginning here in Masjid Ibn Baz, a mabda that is khair. And that is, inshallah, how we wish and we hope that the affair will continue here in the masjid of the brothers from Athariya, Masjid Abduililah Ibn Baz. And without doubt, the first and only masjid here in East London. I repeat, the first and only masjid. Masjid. I'm not talking about a center, no community center or anything like masjid. Masjid. The first and only Salafi Masjid here in East London. And that, ikhwan, is a ni'mah from the ni'mah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yajib al-shukr. You brothers should have made sajda to shukr when you entered into the building, ikhwan. Sajda to shukr. شكرا لله سبحانه وتعالى على نعمه الكثيرة الغزيرة. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. جزاكم الله خيرا. تفضل. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
Ikhwan, Jazakumullah khair, Bismillah. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to reward my dear beloved elders and brothers with khair for coming here and the benefit that they've given us. There's one nuqta that, if I can be excused to mention, and that is that, as Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala said about this Salafiyya, it's ubudiyya, it's servitude. Yani, dealing with every aspect of the deen. So what I'd like to advise my dear brothers is not to lend the ear to individuals that claim that all we do is talk about manhaj, and all we do is talk about this, and we don't teach books of fiqh, and we don't teach books of usul. This is buhtan. This is kadhib. We have our brothers in Maktab al-Salafiyya, they're teaching books of fiqh. Sahih wala? Untitled Chapter. They're teaching Bulugh al-Maram. Rahabiyya, Zawla Khiyab, Hakeem's teaching that in inheritance. Where's that taught here? In Dar al-Sunnah, they were teaching Untitled Chapter. They're teaching Untitled Chapter with Sheikh Ali Haddad. Teaching Usul, teaching the Kutub al-Sunnah, Sahih Muslim, Tafsir, Ibn Kathir, Seerah, Qawaid al-Fiqhiyya, anymore? Mustalah Hadith, Usul al-Fiqh, Qawaid al-Fiqhiyya. Abduililah went through that. Jazawullah khair. But yes, we deal with manhaj, because this is the usul. But what they want to do is cloud the issues of manhaj that have been mentioned by putting doubts that the Salafis are negligent as it relates to other aspects of the deen, and this is kadhib. This is unjust, it's kadhib, and it's not surprising because they are unjust to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by embarking on the way of bid'ah. So as they're unjust with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam and the manhaj of the Salaf that Allah has blessed us with, if they're unjust to that, it's no surprise that they're going to do that to us. But for clarification, Ahlul Sunnah, they deal with ubudiyya, servitude, every aspect of the deen. The people of the Sunnah are the best at doing it. The people of the Sunnah have the best character. They have the best manners. The Tablighis, they show some manners, but that's in the apparent. The utmost etiquette is manners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is by obeying Him and worshipping Him alone, free from shirk, and not introducing newly mattered affairs to His deen. Al-yawm akmaltu lakum deenakum wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati. Allah has perfected this religion. It's perfect, complete, and it's from His favors. So the people of the Sunnah, ikhwan, don't be fooled by these individuals accusing them of not applying the deen in totality. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep us firm upon the Sunnah with ikhlas and sidq. And the sidq is from our jawarih and our actions that should affirm our ikhlas. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to reward my dear beloved brothers and sisters and my uncles and elders that came to participate in this mini dawrah, and ulama such as Sheikh Al-Alama Muhammad ibn Hadi, Hafidhahullah ta'ala. He was not well, he's been sick, but yet he made great effort to meet you and speak to the brothers here in Masjid Ibn Baz. And ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless this masjid and make this masjid firm upon the sunnah while we are alive and firm upon the sunnah and clarity after our deaths. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barik ala nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.